Good evening, folks, and welcome to another session from the Old Wise Asylum. Lots of data tonight to get in there, so you want to pay attention because there'll be a lot in here that you will be interested in. We're going to start off with the credit fraud. Very, very interesting, but more importantly, if you can grasp what's going to be said later, or we're going to start with it, you are on the path to rebutting any and all nonsense from wherever it may appear in the land of commerce. So pay attention. It's not a long-winded gig neither, that part. It's short, but it's profound, and I mean profound. So that's what we'll kick off with. We'll also look into La La Land as we do. We'll continue the narrative that's playing out in relation to the Middle East, because of course on the 19th of April a 13-day fire festival satanic ritual phase begins, and its high feast is actually on the 30th of April, which is Walpurgisnacht, but they do another one on the 1st of April, the 1st of May at 12 midnight, which carries it in to the 2nd of May. Now, I did say last week I would try and seek out the data I have on the rituals, but unfortunately I've been unable to find my own, and when I've looked on the internet, actually there's so much missing now. So I thought we'd leave that. I wouldn't get into that too much, apart from saying yesterday, 19th of April, a fire festival to Molech begins, and it's a 13-day gig. So we know on the 25th Mercury goes forward, so that might clear up any communication errors and such, things just not going right as it's been since the 2nd of this month. But the game that they're playing doesn't end until the 2nd, and you've got to give yourself perhaps till the 5th of May before the energies that have been created and pulled out of the cauldron in this festival season for them to subside enough to no longer be affecting you, unless of course they're directing at you at an individual level. So there we go. So that's that. And of course, what's going on in this festival season for the Satanic Brethren? Well, it's the Middle East, is it not? And last week I put together that little gallery of images, and again I've added to that, so we'll do that again, because again we need to keep this narrative in play, because they actually applied for planning permission in Israel to sacrifice the heifer on the 22nd, which is tomorrow. And it's been a fire festival. Again, in the intro to that gallery last week, we had a guy who used to be part of a couple actually that did videos, interviews all over the show, but they divided up because the female is pretty much fixed into all the garbage, the Q, the aliens, all that malarkey, so they split. But he was presenting to you and us that he had an interview with a politician, a UK politician, back in the day, where he attended a meeting where they made it clear that they were orchestrating a nuclear conflagration in the Middle East that would end rather quickly, but on the back of that they would be pushing for martial law across the West. You know, they say, well, why not the East? Well, if you look at what's going on in China today, it's already in there. You know, they're knocking on your door now in China to check your appliances in your home to see that they're up to date. If not, you get reported and you've got to purchase new ones. They're coming up to people in the streets that are having lunch, taking your image with your camera to see that it's verified on the databases. So they've already got it in place over there in China, which of course is the model for the entire globe. And of course, we have discussed this in the past, but if you take on board the work of Jason at Archaics in relation to catastrophes and the Phoenix cycle as he presents, then these elites, what they're actually doing and what's at the core of the entire game that's playing against us is the fact that they are expecting a huge geophysical destructive event. Because of course what they've hidden from us in this, especially the last 200 years, is the fact that these destructive events happen a lot here. Not necessarily on a huge scale, but in different parts of the world there's always major catastrophes playing out, and they're natural. But of course they're expecting the big one, and of course from their perspective, as Prince Philip makes clear when he's asked about what the issues are in relation to the elites, he makes it clear that it's the rising human population. And when asked if they had any ideas about what to do about that, he offered up the "can't you guess?" Well, of course we can see what they're doing. We've experienced it now for 4 years. In your face. I mean, we know it's been going on a lot longer than that, but if you've not snuck a peek below the covers, then obviously that were a shock to your system. It wasn't a shock to our system because we've been aware of this stuff for a very long time and we've just been waiting for it to start being implemented. So the backdrop to it is they're expecting this huge geophysical destructive cycle to begin. Jason presents it as a first in 240 and a second in 2046. In the east at 2040 and that in the west in 2046. And from their standpoint, what they have decided is the less of us that exist on the earth at the time of this disaster, the more chance they've got of recouping complete control into the aftermath. So that's the premise by which these elites are operating. And the way they're doing that very well at the moment is, of course, they control the 3 programs: Judaism, Christianity and Islam, whilst not actually being any of those 3 religions. We've ventured into Mithra as the underlying thesis upon which everything else is built, and we made it clear, didn't we, not that originally there were no rules, there were no sides, and we can apply that to Genesis 1, which is just, we created the heavens, the earth, the plants, the animals, and we created man, and we created man in our image. No rules. But of course, if you want to gain insight into what they're saying by that, then you've got to look at what it is they're saying they created. And of course, if you look out there in the big wide world, whether it's terra firma or up into the heavens, it's beauty personified. So of course, if we're in their image, they're expecting us to create things of beauty, of value, of worth, not the nonsense that's going on at the high level end of this game. But of course, they play it in a way in which you are making the choice. You are the doers, you're the deciders, you are carrying it out. They're only whispering in your ear. And thus, so far, they've managed to keep the karmic kickback, as it's called, from hitting them. It comes directly to those who make the choices. So that's the basic premise of what they're doing, why they're doing it. But of course, when it gets to the spiritual side of it, they're operating in accordance with the original Mithraic tradition. Then, of course, it was shifted into a duality by another group that held that doctrine in its heart. And then again, it was created into a Trinitarian system, where they created an arbitrator for the 2 energies, your masculine, your feminine, your left, your right, positive, negative, etc. They created themselves a third party, which gave them the role of arbitrator. And that's the role that they're playing in relation to what you out there believe, what you out there have took upon yourself as your belief, what you're going to do and how you're going to act out in this world. So the three programs, Christianity, Judaism and Islam, which are the prominent programs that they're operating in relation to destruction, is of course then being carried out by all those involved in each of those programs. So blame, where does blame really lie in that respect? Well, of course, with every single one of us out here who are acting in accordance with the programs because people have held them as their belief system. And that's pretty much the situation we find ourselves in today. Now, we can see that they've captured us with the programs, but then we can also see that in the West here, under the Roman system, the Aryan Roman system, everything was presented in the outer circle in a method of finance or commerce, which of course we can trace back to Babylon as a system. That system was lost, regrouped and claimed again and reinstituted in the West, we might say, with the efforts of the Templars back there before and during the Crusades, when they were given the systems by the Magi or the Sufis, of course coming out of Iran, the Persian system. And we all know, we've seen the film 300 where, you know, the Persian masses were always trying to get over into Europe and take it over. The Venetians are definitely of that stock. Of course, then making up the Holy See families, which we've begun to look at in depth, who they are and what mechanics you've used and how and which departments of our, you might say, civilized worlds they play their part. Now, just to sort of cement that so that it has a fix in your mind so you grasp it a little bit better, we need to look at and understand that the Freemasons, as the fifth science, operate as the builders, the creators of the will of these Holy See families. And of course, Freemasonry is tied specifically in today's game into the reformed breakaway from the original Roman Church. And of course, we're talking about the Western Aryan Church. Okay? The Catholics originally were the Byzantine, the eastern side of Rome. So the Masonic, as the builders of it, as I've said many times in papers, in thesis, and also spoke it on here, are also in the position of the scapegoat in this secret society architectural building of this system. Okay, now Freemasonry, we know today, in its origins, as it was implanted on the British Isles, was actually a Christian doctrine. We've seen that when we looked at the original temple that was built by the Templars in London. It had nothing to do with Solomon. It was cited as being sanctified to St. Mary the Virgin. So that was the original temple, that were its plan, that were its ethos. It was a Christian endeavour by the original Templars on the British Isles. Not necessarily the same mindset as what was going on in Europe, because of course the Templars were broken up into many different military organisations, even though they operated under the same mantle, in the sense that they were opposing the encroachment of the Muslims. Okay? Now, of course, we looked at this the other week, and you know, today, Freemasonry, having been taken over by this other group, has now become so embedded in this system that they're now claiming that that was the original temple, because that's the temple that all the Masons, you know, are operating to and have been for a very long time, let's say the 1700s at least. Late 1700s, when it was being known by the Masons of the day that actually they'd been taken over by this sun cult. So that's the temple that we're dealing with today. It's Solomon's temple. However, it's not the original That's the original. So there's been a shift, and so the Masons have to start to accept that actually you've actually been shafted. Where am I here? And you're not operating in accordance with your original doctrine. You have been gazumped, and you are now in the scapegoat position, as it were. Now, the Palavicini, we looked at the Palavicini. Now, I've written about the Palavicini for many years because it was clear to me when I was studying this stuff many years ago that they were actually the force behind the House Stanley. Previous to the House Stanley being installed on the British Isles as the power, it was the House Breakspear. But once they'd established the Stanley's might and power as the Earls of Derby, then the Breakspears uprooted and went over to China to do the same on behalf of the Holy See families. Because remember, we're dealing here with what is after the Crusades, the 1066 invasion here where they implanted themselves, etc., etc. So there's a definite demarcation line in relation to our histories as the Western nations. There's from the man up to the Crusades, and then there's from the Crusades after, when everything's changed. Our histories have been shifted and moved so we don't see this, and all the histories from that time up until the 1600s, when actually we started to create records of our own on the British Isles, were all formed and created by monks. So pretty obvious to see where these narratives, as they shifted us off our true history, have come from. So the Masons, as the fifth science and the builders of the will of these Holy See families, which is the Venetians, which we looked at as well last week, that suggested that we're actually the intelligence agencies of the Mongol horde. Now, Holy See families have always claimed heritage from Persia or Iran, which is Shia. We looked at the Palavicini, didn't we? The Palavicini were behind the rise of the British Empire on these isles, which originally was the Dutch Empire. It moved here. Yeah, they moved the naval headquarters and also the financial headquarters. And then we got the Hanoverians on here, and then Freemasonry became specifically wrapped up with the Germanic, or that's what we're supposed to see, but actually, of course, the Prussians had got in there, which was the Teutonic Knights. So again, the same ethos of the Templars had took over Germany and had took over the Germanic Aryans while presenting themselves as the Germans. Well, that's what happened there, and here it was the Templars who then both got took up and pulled into this Solomon's Temple. So our original ethos was always Christian. You can see that in the architecture, especially in Germany, which is why they bombed the living daylights out of it in the Second World War, to remove so much of the Aryan architecture that today they're now claiming was Tartarian, which is absolute garbage. Okay, the Tartarians were a very evil race. They were a very cruel race, very in sync with what we know as the Khazarian. You know, the sacrifices of the children to Molech. And of course, we're in the festival of Molech right now. Now, the Palavicini also control Islam. That's Sunni Islam. So they've married into the Arabs and all the Sunni tribes, and have been manipulating Sunni Islam for a very long time also. And again, Palavicini come from Iran. So the Shias, really, that's the real core, the Sufi side of it. And they've changed Islam, from my studies, through the Hadith and the Sirah. And in doing so, they have shifted Islam today off the Quran, and thus, again, is right for judgment by these elites operating as the arbitrator under the Zoroastrian doctrines. Yeah, they've set everybody up to go against the doctrine. They're right for judgment. Every single one of us is in that position, including the Jews, especially the Jews. But of course, because they've been put in a high administration role, they're going to be the last to see the judgment upon them. Although the actual people in Israel are probably going to get a judgment pretty quickly if the choreographed plan that they've got going on becomes manifest, which is what they're trying to do right now. Now, in that interview, it was mentioned that China was possibly going to do an attack. I would suggest it would probably be Russia, because Russia are already in the war game through the Ukraine. So maybe it's not going to be China, it'll be Russia. I think if you go with Nostradamus, China actually attack America down the line in a dawn raid. Although once it's happened, the confusion is that nobody knows who has done it, but they immediately retaliate against China, and that's where the bigger war comes into play. Mother Shipton made it very clear in her prophecies from Yorkshire that it's the yellow race who are trying to divide the world in two, and of course we assume it's China. But of course, we've got to start to consider what we brought into the mix last week with the Genghis Khan crew. Again, I would suggest they were operating pulled together by the Persians or the Iranians, which is why the Venetians have acted as their intelligence operation to further move them into Western Europe, and that the deals that were done in the day were pretty much the Western Rome gave itself up to the Venetian will, which is why the Venetians were the first bankers, the first to collect the mints under their own wing, whereas before the mints, etc., were basically in the monastery system. So the monastery system in and of itself was the old, you might say, Aryan Christendom. Wasn't necessarily headed in the Vatican or Rome, but obviously as it got took over, that's exactly what they did do, and centred it in Rome. But of course it shifted all over the show through the battles. If you actually study history, it hasn't always been centred into Rome. So the Palavicini are very important because they've controlled what's gone on the British Isles since the Crusades, but more importantly, they're in full control of Sunni Islam. So Sunni Islam is running everything, the Sufis here. And the Palavicini now today, as we can see, are pulling in another branch they own in order to usurp what they've used for centuries, because of course us white conquerors, we're a bit thick. You know, our ancestors were not as bright as I thought, because of course they've all been shafted by this game. So there's your Palavicini, and there you can see why Islam's being shifted everywhere. But of course, when you get into the theology of these Talmudists, they make it very clear that the Islam is just a broom working on behalf of the priesthood. So that's another one that I know most Muslims are not aware of, but that's exactly how the Jews play it. That's what they say. It's what they teach the children in the synagogues. As Abe Finkelstein made clear, you know, you put you guys in the schools to be programmed, they put their kids in the schools, but they're being programmed even more. Yeah, they're given this, we are better than everybody else, we've been chosen. Well, they have been chosen, but by these families. You know, these are man gods, these people. The days of the gods have gone. That's ancient history. And if you go back to the Lord of the Rings, they make it very clear that this has been a time of man for a long time. So these people are man gods. So when you're speaking of gods today, you're basically speaking of these families and the egregore that's been built around them as they've built these systems for centuries. So that's what it is you're praying to, and that's what it is that's giving you pets mean prizes, as it were. So there's your Palavicini, your Masons, in full control, and of course the Masons now under Solomon have been shifted into the higher administration. At the low end, of course, we're talking about the three programs here. The Palavicini, of course, are way above that. They're operating as the arbitrators, as are all the Holy See families under the Zoroastrian take on Mithraism. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense to you, because this is exactly what's playing out here. Now you've got the United States, okay? It was built, we think and believe, on Freemasonry. But of course, if you get into what was going on in 1492 with Spain, actually the first bunch over there to set up the control systems was the Jews. Okay, that's who. Well, they were crypto Jews, weren't they, in them days? Because there were a lot of battles going on because they kept getting outed for their sacrifice and the stealing of the kids and all this malarkey. As Finkelstein explained, they do this. It's what they do, because of course we know what they do. It's strewn throughout history. And they get kicked out of nations when they're found out. That's why they get kicked out. It's got nothing to do with everybody else is evil. It's when everybody else finds out, well, actually, you're not being nice. This is what you're doing. Yeah, rightly, they get kicked out. But they took hold in America first. And especially Texas. Texas is the oldest civilized state that still exists today that were actually set up. And of course, they were coming up through the Caribbean. So Texas has always been the centre of the forces that moved out to Spain in 1492 and beyond that. So they were the initial guys getting in there. Now, we looked again, didn't we, at the origin of the Big Z last week. Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia, which if anybody knows about the Masonic tradition, you will know that Philadelphia has always been the centre of the Masonic power on America. But obviously, like Scotland has done over England, the bloodlines were in Canada because of the wars that were going on in the days of the 1600s between the Indians, the French, the Dutch, the English. Yeah, those wars. The English basically had the power base up in Canada, and then from that they would come down slowly, and Philadelphia was the main base. You got George Washington, all these people in and around that. But of course, remember, Freemasonry hasn't always operated in the method and way it is today. And people forget this. And this is why the Masons today are still fooled, thinking they're operating in accordance to the terms of Christendom, when in fact they're not. It's the higher levels. But then, of course, I'd say in the last maybe 100 years since Edward VII, then if you're in the lodges, you've got to at least have some sense that you're not actually operating for Christendom, you're operating for Solomon. And of course, the hatred for Rome has always kept them quiet because they believe they're opposing Rome, when in fact, that couldn't be any further from the truth. The Holy See families are running all. Now, what I'm seeing in the United States, perhaps, just looking at the way in which today the UK is fully behind Israel, whatever it does, that's Cameron. We'll have a look at Cameron's wife in a minute, just to get you an idea of what kind of mouthpiece he's operating for. But the United States looks like it's having a bit of a, well, you know, we're not so sure, blah, 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 blah. And of course, you look at Trump. Trump's big in there with the Catholic side of everything. Yeah. Happy to accept the Talmudist idea that he's King Cyrus, etc. But it looks to me like the United States might be being pulled directly under Rome. As people become disgusted with the moves made by the governing forces over there in Israel. So I'm seeing that as a potential. Of course, it's only a potential. I'm just seeing that could. So we're, as England, are going to get completely scapegoated as being completely Masonic, while America might just give itself that little bit of a, well, hang on a minute, we're just going to move back into Rome, which is ultimately the ultimate power. And of course, Rome wants the ultimate power, which is the United States. It wants that directly under its wing, doesn't it? So I'm seeing a potential move in that direction in relation to looking at how these secret societies and the Holy See families are operating. Now, the Orsini, people have put them up and said they're the Almighty and blah, 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 he's the Great Pope. Look, the Orsini run the Rosicrucians. They run the theological aspect to the high level for all the secret societies to operate under. So they are a powerful family, but because, of course, the Rosicrucians, which you don't hear much of unless you're in the traditions or you've studied the traditions, they're actually running that. So they are quite a power, but only in dishing out the theology that you guys in the lodges, in these covens, in these societies are allowed to take on. So the Orsini are a powerful family. And so they're operating the theology, you might say, for the Holy See families in relation to the secret societies and the will of the Holy See. Now, and I've said this and I've written about this for a long time because I put a lot of study into Nostradamus back in the day. Many years of not constant study, but I used to keep coming back to it as I learnt more. I'd go back to his quatrains. But the problem I had, of course, is I didn't speak French and I couldn't be bothered to learn it because, of course, I'm English and we don't do that kind of thing because we're full of shit. But that were my that was my sort of Achilles heel, the fact that I didn't speak the French language, so I was always dependent on other people's translations. But outside of Nostradamus and his prophecies, what was pretty clear in those histories is that Nostradamus, because he worked for Catherine de Medici, he gave her everything. He told her the uber, you might say, plan of what were coming in the future. And this is, in my opinion, why Catherine de Medici never became a queen, was always the power behind the queens and the kings. But then slowly over the years, they put themselves into the background. And today, even, they just pretend that they just wanted to, that the bloodline went out of the picture. But we looked the other week, did we not, at all those today, through Charles II, through Charles I, through James I and VI of Scotland. Actually, all those bloodlines were operating as and under the Medici. Now, again, when I looked into the Pallavicini, it appeared to me that the Fourniers were actually the power behind the Pallavicini. And then, of course, you've got the Aldobrandini as well. They're a very, very, very powerful family. Now, I would suggest they operate their power more in the east, more in the Persian districts. And so their power is actually very well hidden, because I would suggest it's perhaps not a part of Western history. But again, these are my thoughts in relation to what I felt when I was studying these subjects way back in the day. And I said I found my book the other week, and I've been going through that. And these are the thoughts that I had back then. And I have to say, as I was going through this book, they've only cemented as fact more than they did back in the day when I was just learning, basically. But as I've said before, no matter what I'm reading out there, what I'm studying out there, what people are saying, what I'm being encouraged to believe, it always adds to it the points of reference. Genesis 1, the real meaning to the teaching that we get through the man by his action rather than the written, and of course the main one back to that kingdom within. Did it feel right inside of me? And you know, synchronicity is just fantastic. So where I were before, all I've done in these next 20 years is expand that support for those feelings I had back in the day, and that's good. It shows that I've kept to my path, because of course it's still in sync with everything I've learned before. Because of course I'm always happy if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to know I'm wrong, because my aim isn't to be almighty fantastic philosopher. It's to get it right. It's to get the truth of everything rather than suck into somebody else's belief system. So the Medicis, for me, are still the number one family in relation to the Holy See families. That doesn't mean to say that there aren't families hidden behind all that. And of course you get into John Coleman, and he was naming family names that you can't even pronounce. I couldn't even pronounce it enough to write them down, to search them. And he was saying, you know, basically the next to the Rothschilds look like pikeys. So you've got to also take that on board. All you see, we can see it more than likely a front. Because I've always gone by the idea, if you can see it, it's a front. You're not actually getting to the core of who it is that's running this shindig. But then if you go with the Holy See families, they're the arbitrators, the Zoroastrians. Before that, the higher level are just dualists. It's right or it's wrong. And then ultimately at the back of that is the original Mithras doctrine. In sync with Genesis 1, there aren't any fucking rules. They're none given to you. You're here, you're given free will. It's entirely up to you what you create. And that's the force I seek to synchronize with. So I'm not interested in being an arbitrator. I'm not interested. I've got an understanding of what's right and wrong, what's not right, what doesn't work right with my soul. Because I'm seeking out that Genesis 1. Those are the creative force that I seek. Not anything else. Everything else to me is just garbage. Man-made to serve man. And that's how I see this game. And that's me to a T. So I just wanted to get that through to you about in relation to just trying to help you get an idea of how these families are operated. But more importantly, it's important we start to understand that the Masons are the scapegoat sect for it, because of course it's Reformed, it's Protestant, it's hated by Rome, even though it's been controlled by it for such a long time. They don't forget, and they have a long memory, these people, you know. So that's how I'm seeing it. So Masons, get off your ass, wake up, start acting like you're infants, and get a grip of what's really going on here. You know, it's pretty clear your 21st degree Scottish Rite is a no-hide judge, a goyim that's going to judge each and every one of us. You Masons out there that I know, you were all shitting yourself when this shit kicked off in 2020. Running around with your masks on, running off and getting the shot. You're full of shit. For everything you've done all your life in that lodge, you've learned fuck all. Because you gave it up. You gave up your entire life to something else. Can you not see it now? Is Abe Finkelstein correct? The white race of cowards. Is he correct? Because I'm beginning to think he is, to be quite honest. You're so pathetic. You know, when I speak to guys who have got something about them, there's just something missing. There's something missing. If you're not being told, if you're not taking an order, you're fucked. And that's what Finkelstein was telling you, in my opinion. So that aside, okay? So that's just preempting us into when we will do this credit thing now, because this is just absolute dynamite. You get this, people? You're on to a winner. You are on to a winner in relation to understanding the blag. And then if you play with it, you will understand how to approach everything that comes at you. Because all you need to do in a conditional acceptance is revoke the right or assumed or implied right to access your estate. I'll say that again, okay? What I'm going to talk to you about now is so important in relation to how you rebut this shit, because what you would need to do in your paperwork is make it clear that you are revoking their implied right to access to your estate. Then you're acting as settler. Yeah, so if you're using settler, I'm settler beneficiary, you're actually showing that you're settler. You're not just talking about it as wind and piss. Because this is the problem we have, is people are putting all this stuff out, but then their actions are not showing that they're actually capable of being the settler. In which case, you're not the beneficiary. They are. And it's a fraud. It's a fraud beyond fraud. It's ridiculous. So we'll get cracking on with that now. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to. So I've preempted what we're going to do after this. This credit thing is an extra to tonight's show. But we'll get it out of the way, and then we'll move on to what I've set up for the week. Okay, first we'll have a little look who's joined us. Jerry says, hi Sean, and all in the wise asylum. Good evening to you, Jerry. Paul says, good evening Sean, and everyone good evening Paul. June says, good evening Sean, good evening June. Untitled says, hello Sean, and all estate holders and secured interests. Hello to you, my good man. June says, good evening Paul Sefton. Okay. Jerry, we've got the dancing. Oh, Saturday Night Fever. It's Sunday Night Fever, actually. Slipknot says, alright, Sean, Jack, and everyone. Trev, yo, China. Got this phone back on, and I picked up your last text. I think you're going to be right. It's not the meth blue. It's the other. Because I've run out at t'other, and it's come back. So, I think you might be onto something there. PY says, good evening all. Good evening, Paul. Mew says, good morning, afternoon, good evening, one and all, and hello to Sean. Good evening to you, Jeff. Paul says, good evening to June Gower. Good evening, everybody. Well, Treen says, evening, Sean and fellow troopers. Good evening, Treen. Jerry, son of Mick. Oh, yes, and we've got flashes of fire. Whoa, ho, 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 for the fire season. Ooh. Profiler X, good evening to you, Profiler. Cos, 1973s. We've got the hand up, we've got the beard, and the thumbs up. Who's got the beard? Good evening, says Cos. Good evening to you, Cos. Liverpool Council Watch. Buenos noches, hombres. Well, good evening to you, too. I made it to a live, although I'm late as I was finishing last week's live replay. Ha, confused. Oh, confused there. You'll have to elaborate on that after. Miroslav Nikic, hello to you, sir. Do you think they are misusing some of Tesla's inventions? Well, I'd say that everything they've got and hidden from us is Tesla science, and they gave us the garbage. And people are starting, I mean, the chemtrails are all over the show now. People are starting to get a grip, even though they could have seen them for decades if they only had the sense to look up. So people are starting to wacken up on that as well. Now, that's got to be good as well, especially in the US. States are starting to rule against it, so that's good. Mark says, hi, Sean. Hi, guys. Yep, hello, Mark. BB, the geometric design of the cathedrals, especially the Gothic ones, you should look into. Vincent Bridges touched on this. I have indeed. I'm not keen on the Gothic. I think that came in after the Solomons started to move in on what was the original Christendom. So I wouldn't lay it at the feet of the Gothics, if I'm truthful. Because as we looked at last week with the woman of the wilderness, this is where your Bohemian crap comes in, and of course that's the origin of the Z-Force in the United States, 1694. Not Theodore Herzl in the late 1800s. So they've been preempting the United States or America with that game for a long, long time. In fact, you could say it was built on it. The only problem they had at the time was the South, the Virginians, because they were operating as a separate bunch as English and Germans, and they had the power base in the north of England through the cotton. And of course, the Civil War in America destroyed the South's power and also destroyed the power the north of England had to keep London at bay. Lex says, evening, Sean and everyone, evening, Lex. Jerry says, hi to all. Arriving in, leave your shoes at the door. Disciple of the Messiah, peace and grace, Brother Sean and family. Peace and grace to you, sir, as well, and good evening. Mark Oakford says, evening, Sean. Good evening, Mark. Profile X, Simon of Trent is a famous case when the Yids got found out. There's a lot, yeah, exactly. So, well, you know the origin of the National Socialists in Germany? There was an event in which a young child, a German child, was butchered. And the butcher in question was a Yid. And his own son actually outed the fact that his father had butchered this German child. Now, it's still debatable as whether that in and of itself was a psyop. It could have been. However, that began the National Socialist idea in Germany and the opposition between the Germans and the Yids. So, again, it could even have been a psyop, but it did its job. So there's the origin of National Socialism. Not Hitler. Hitler took it over and created it into something else. So he took an existing mindset and pulled it into his own. Where we are. Jerry says 87% Canadian land is Crown land and under the blanket of national parks. Indeed it is. Well, they got National Trust here and all these trusts that they set. You know, everything's been put into trusts. And people don't understand what these trusts are. And they pit us against each other, and then and now, as you say, Sean, we build what they desire. Precisely because it's in our hearts. It's in your heart. I say our, I'm not. Like I said, I'm not either or. Because I understand the game. You can't pick a side. It's impossible. But you're absolutely right. But it's your heart's desire, isn't it? It's your soul. As it's expressing itself through the character that your avatar has picked up. Because remember, all this is programming your avatar, your program, rather than your soul. Your soul's not getting a look in until you pull that sword from the soul. That means, basically, the symbolism of that is, you have pulled your soul out of the commands of matter. The avatar, the genetics, the memories, and all the stuff that goes with it, your desires, etc. This is the mystery school stuff, this. And this is why anybody that can pull the sword from the stone is automatically demarcated a divine king, because you are pulling in the will of the heavens, the heavenly forces. Yeah, that's what that's about. But it's got lost because, of course, that psycho Eleanor of Aquitaine fucked it up by having all the French poets, etc., rewriting the whole Arthur gig, because the English at the time were going mad for the return of Arthur. And they decided, we found him, but you can't look at the bodies. We found him and Guinevere, but you can't see it. That's what they did. That's Henry II and the spaz bitch of the written word, Eleanor of Aquitaine. The Angevins. Where are we there? Anorzian, the ignorant Zarkist. I was born and bred on stolen land. Nobody owns anything, ladies and gentlemen. And if you make that claim straight away, they don't understand the word. You see, the surname, the Vatican doesn't say it owns it, it says the surname belongs to the church. It's the words, people. And you think that means, oh, they're owning it, they say they're owning it. No. Own and belongs is not the same definition. You see why I've gone on about this forever. You've got to realise that you don't understand your own language. This is why the word wizardry wipes the floor with you. You think a word means something it doesn't. So the Vatican have been very clear that the surname belongs to the Vatican. That's the perpetual instrument. The Holy Ghost, you might say. Yeah? And that's an estate's then created when you're born, and your name gets fixed to that. That's the name of the estate that you're operating under, but they've stolen. They've defrauded you of it. Because that's important for what we're going to look at in a minute. Big E says, bit late, but better than never. I guess, hope all are well. Hello, Big E. Treen says, I'd love to be wrong, but I have a feeling the people of High won't show their hand at this stage, but they will stop this evil somehow. And we have to stop it. The game only plays out because we act it. They write the script, whisper in your lug hole, and of course if you haven't rid yourself of the programme you were given the minute you were popped out, you're dancing. You're dancing. Anorzian, the ignorant Zarkist. Oh, Canada. Yeah, Canada's in a hell of a mess. You've got your true dictator showing itself there, the old Castro. Jerry, son of Mick, gets it, Anarchian, hope you are well. Tree says, smash the like button, folks. Yeah, get that like button smashed. It's going down. What's up with you? You bad uns. Even if you just hit it, smash it. Welcome to the anarchy. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. The Palavicini have got plenty of fruit bats down in the cities claiming to be Muslims, getting ready to kick that off. I mean, so much shit they're talking now. And these police, what the fuck? If we had police, we had when miners' strikes were on, we wouldn't even get anywhere. Militia. Militia mind. I'm talking here. I'm talking to you blacks. I'm talking to you white honkies. Militia mind. Because these fruit bats, you know, it's not going to stop. They've got mayors everywhere, councillors everywhere. They're everywhere. Palavicini controlling the lot of them through the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, that's the game. And of course, that's controlled by Palavicini, who are Iranians. Shias. Anyway. BB says, the hidden hand is the spiritual reality. And all the beings within that space. You won't understand esoteric and metaphysical secrets fully unless you're able to perceive the spiritual. Absolutely. It's all about what's that third eye manifesting. Because your third eye is creating a vision that you're picking up from your five senses and then manifesting by acting it. It's all about you. It's all in you, everything. Tree says, I think he's right, especially now. They're too busy waxing the back, sacks and cracks, sunbeds, etc. totally caught up in vanity. Me, I've got a beard, says Tree. Oh, that's a novel do. Jerry says, and the surname is the thing that creepeth up from below, and you were granted dominion over that which creepeth. Precisely. And Nouveau Lorado says, thumbs up, good evening to you, sir, or madam. And Tree says, I popped out arse first. Yeah, my eldest daughter did that, shit all over the shop, pissed over doctor's thingy, it was quite comical, blood everywhere. I just thought to myself, I'm so glad I'm a male. I wouldn't want to be going through that malarkey, I'll tell you that for a... Right. Pay attention, folks. This is so important. Right, so, you're born, estate, it's tied into the perpetual instrument, which is your family name, your patronymic, they create a surname, the church says, it belongs to us. That's the Holy Spirit, okay? So you've got an estate. The estate is known by the name, including your first name, okay? That's your name of the estate, the trust that's built. Now it says utility companies are operating as credit brokers. Okay, give that some thought. Now, in my latest endeavours with the law, it was against the council who were claiming to be a creditor because of the council tax account. Okay? Now, it says all energy companies are operating as credit brokers and are supposed to notify you of this when they're entering into a service agreement with them, because these utility companies are service providers. What that service is they put a meter in and measure what you're getting. That's the service, nothing else. They're not providing you with gas. They're not providing you with electric. That's the National Grid and Cadent that supply us with that. We've paid for it. It belongs to us. That's a part of our estate. Okay, of the land. It's of the land. We bought it. Sorry, we created it. It's ours. But they're coming in as a service provider by giving you a meter and measuring what's already yours and then charging you. And they call it giving you credit. Okay? You got that? It must be made clear that you are paying for debt and not for the use of electricity, gas or water. And the true contract is needed to be drawn up before payment is made. Okay? So, consider it in these terms. As we know from the mortgages, etc. When you enter into contract with these fruit bats, they're accessing your estate. So they've accessed your money, your credit, because you are the creditor, and then they're giving it to you in a contract that means that you're paying them again as a service provider. That's how thick we are. Now, just before we go into the consumer agreement, listen to this. The estate is the name, the title. The individual, which is you, because you have a birth certificate, is the evidence of your interest in that title. Or that paperwork shows that you have a secured interest in that trust. Do you get that? Now, this is the blank. So when you move into a new property, who's telling the utility companies that you've moved in? Because you're not, are you? Unless you're thick as fuck. But you're not telling them, are you? So who's involved? Solicitor, an estate agent, a bank. They're involved in this gig when you move in to a new property. If it's a mortgage, the bank's involved. If it's just a rental, then the estate agent, and also the council, aren't they? The council are involved, the estate agent's involved, the solicitor's involved. And somebody in that mix is informing these credit brokers, because that's what they are, these people. The brokers of credit means they're selling it. They sell credit. And of course, you're the creditor. They're selling your fucking credit to you in a fraud. Do you get that? No. So you move in, who's telling them? Because they'll send you a letter, won't they, and say, you're the occupier. Okay? So at this point, they don't have permission to access your estate or for you to become their creditor, which are then going to screw you and take it out again because they're going to make you pay for it, yeah? They need your name. And they need you, more importantly. What do they always need? A signature. The minute you sign a signature, you have given them permission to sell your credit to you and bum you. Are you getting that, people? Are you getting that? Where are we here? So they're then lending you credit and claiming it to be a service. So they're giving you fraud and saying that's the service we're selling you. But they don't tell you that, do they? They don't tell you this stuff. So you've not got full disclosure. This is why it's fraud. And because we don't understand it in these terms, we don't know how to rebut it. It's a fucking packet. It is an empire built of cards. It's so fragile. And this is going on. I don't care whether you're a solicitor, whether you're a barrister, whether you're a councillor, an MP, a copper, a military man. It doesn't matter who you are. You're being fucked over by this system, by the one that called itself the Queen, and the one that now calls itself a king. Do you get that? Now I have a video here where the Queen makes it very clear. She doesn't offer you justice. She doesn't offer you law. She offers you her heart. Well, that's black heart, isn't it? That's as black as it comes. How thick are baby boomers for not recognising that? Because she said that when she bagged the chair. She told you. She weren't giving you law or justice. She was giving you her heart. How black were that? Right? So when baby boomers go, oh, you always attack baby boomers, blah, blah, blah. Fucking right, I'll attack you. You guys think you were God's gift and best thing since fucking Rome. Actually, it's not quite correct. And the Generation X, my generation, are no better. So I'm not just attacking you, but you need to snap out of it, guys. You've been shafted. You're being shafted. Right now, right this minute. Yeah? Let's have a look. And remember that insurance underlies and underwrites this trust system. Yeah? And what do brokers sell? In the main? Insurance. So all these operations are brokers. And they don't tell you that. They're selling you your credit. You're the creditor. They come in and tap in as an intermediary. Get you to sign off so that they can take your credit and sell it back to you. It's already yours. Are you getting this? This is how you revoke it, chaps. Let's have a look. So every bill's already paid for. Can you see where that comes from? That idea that it's all prepaid? Because it is. Can you see why they're bringing immigrants in now? They need dumb fuckers that don't know their ass from their elbow, because as soon as they come here, they give them paperwork and a trust created. They need to get rid of us, whose perpetuity instrument is going way back to 356 BC, if you want to find the point at which we were called the British Isles. Can you see why they're getting rid of the white race? Because they're taking over civilization. Because we are civilization. Not Tartaria, not Africans, as they keep pressing everywhere. We, the white Onkiurian race, are civilization. We created it. We are it. And they're taking it away. Because we're all stupid. Do you get it? Now, let's have a look, just to give you a little bit more of an insight here as to why that's the case. Consumer Credit Act, 1974. Under the Consumer Credit Act, 1974, Chapter 39, Part 5, Section 61, a signed credit agreement has to be signed by both parties. For them to sell you your credit, you have to sign it. There's your statute to rebut this shit. Are you digging the scene, man? Are you going to change your dance? 61. Signing of agreement. 1. A regulated agreement is not properly executed unless a document in the prescribed form itself containing all the prescribed terms and conforming to regulations under section 61 is signed in the prescribed manner both by the debtor, they're the debtor, but this is the fraud. They get you to give them the credit so that you become the debtor and they sell it to you. Can you see it now? Are you digging? Are you digging the scene? Huh? Prescribed manner both by the debtor or hirer and by or on behalf of the creditor or owner, and the document embodies all the terms of the agreement other than implied terms, and the document is, when presented or sent to the debtor or hirer for signature, in such a state that all its terms are readily legible. Do they tell you they're accessing, they want you to, is the agreement say, we want you to give us access to your estate so we can become the creditor to you and sell you your own credit? Do they tell you that? Do they fuck? 25,000 pages of terms and conditions. That's missing. Are you seeing this now? This is how it comes down. This is how it comes down. So, under the Consumer Credit Act 1974, Chapter 39, Part X, Section 155, an individual has the right to recover brokerage fees, meaning an individual is protected if no credit agreement has been signed and anything over £5 has to be refunded. Okay? 155, right to recover brokerage fees. 1. Subject to subsection 2A, the excess over £5 of a fee or commission for his services charged by a credit broker to an individual to whom this subsection applies shall cease to be payable, as the case may be, shall be recoverable by the individual if the introduction does not result in his entering into a relevant agreement within the 6 months following the introduction, disregarding any agreement which is cancelled under section 69.1 or becomes subject to section 69.2. Can you dig the scene? It's all here. Note, if you were not made aware that you were dealing with a credit broker and buying debt, then this would constitute fraud, and all prior payments, including direct debits, should be reclaimed. But it's deeper than that. Do they tell you in that agreement that they want you to sign, so you're the creditor, okay? That's where you are. Always, as everywhere you are, you're the creditor. Ooh. They come in and go, you occupier, you piece of shit. We sign this, you bumhole. And what they don't say is, oh, we're the debtors, the brokers of credit, but until we can sell it here, you need to sign off your credit to us so that we become the creditor to you, the debtor. Can you dig that? Can't make it any clearer than that, chaps. It's just there. You might want to go back to that again and again and again and again so it embeds in your head. There is the master file of exposing the fraud. Okay? What do you think to that? Flea bags. Now then. Where are we? Okay, so hang on, I'm going to have to come back in here because obviously that's, oh my word, because I made it very big. Oh, to get that consumer credit gig in the mix. So, choo-choo-choo, choo-be-doo-doo. Right. Now then, I've said this before, and I've written about this before, but the Middle Temple, which QE2 was a member, and my guess, Fat Fingers the Fraud with the red lips and his moll, are also members. The Middle Temple traffics assets into the Inner Temple. Elizabeth Mary Alexander Windsor, Queen Elizabeth II, was a member of the Middle Temple. What does that tell thee? Everything she did, everywhere she put her paws, she was pulling in the assets as a member of the Middle Temple into the Inner Temple, which of course we now know is Solomon's Temple, not being bagged in to the Virgin Mary. So when everybody says Christianity is the source of all evil, what utter shit. Okay? Utter shit. American Declaration of Independence, so that's the United States of America in its entirety, was signed by the members of the Inner Temple and Middle Temple. Did you know this, America? 1776, the biggest black going. 6 members of the Inner or Middle Temple were among the signatories. They'll have been members of the Middle Temple. Okay? Because they're the brokers. Okay, the Middle Temple are the brokers. Queenie. Fat Fingers Charles and his mole. And his little offspring. If it's really the original Billy the Shagger. I don't think it is. Were among the signatories to the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Thomas Haywood, June, from 1778, Judge of the High Court of South Carolina, Thomas Lynch, Thomas McKean, President of Delaware and Chief Justice of Pennsylvania. We looked at that last week, didn't we? The woman of the wilderness, the origin of the big Z. Arthur Middleton, William Packet, later Governor of Maryland, and Edward Rutledge. Well, he became the geezer of Maryland after they took it off the Southerners. And Edward Rutledge, late Governor of South Carolina, John Dickinson of Middle Temple, who drafted the Articles of Federation and became President of Delaware in 1781. Famously refused to sign since he was still seeking reconciliation with Britain as well as liberty. Britain was not the Temple. Can you dig it? Britain was British Isles. Temple is a completely different animal. It belongs to Sol, On, the sun, Mithra, as it is from the Zoroastrian angle. Back again to the dualistic elite, back to the singular. The boys up there that made man in our image, they said. Can you dig the scene? 7 Middle Templars signed the American Constitution in 1787. John Blair, Chief Justice of Virginia. John Dickinson, Gerard Ingersoll, First Attorney General of Pennsylvania. William Livingston, Governor of New Jersey. John Rutledge, Chairman of the Drafting Committee. And the Second Chief Justice of the United States, Charles Pinckney and Charles Cotsworth Pinckney. Okay? So if you're an American watching this whole live stream as an intel operative, did you see that? If you're 7th Brigade, well, I know you're only little kids and you don't know your ass from your elbow. Did you see that? The founding father of the Republic of Ghana was a member of the Middle Temple. So it weren't the English screwing you over there in Africa. It were the Solomons. Edward Akufo-Addo, 1906-1979, admitted 1937 into the Middle Temple and called in to the temple in 1940. President of the Republic of Ghana. Edward Akufo-Addo, born in Dodowa, Ghana in 1906, was one of the founding fathers of the Republic of Ghana. In 1947, he became a founding member of the United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC, and was one of the Big Six detained after disturbances in Accra in 1948. From 1949 to 1950, he was a member of the United Gold Coast Legislative Council and the Kuse Constitutional Commission. After Ghana declared independence from British rule, Akufo-Addo was appointed a Supreme Court Judge and Chief Justice from 1966 to 1970. Did you see that? Independence from British rule. But not independence from the temple. This is what they've done in India. It's what they've done everywhere. Independent of the British system, because they've shoved you head first into the inner temple. Holy See, Palavicini, Talmudists, Fruit Bats United. He became the second president of the Republic of Ghana, serving until his deposition by a military coup in 1972. Well, that will have just been another branch of the temple. First Prime Minister of Singapore was a member of Middle Temple. Lee Kuan Yew, 1923-2015, admitted 1946 and called in 1950. First Prime Minister of Singapore. See, Singapore belongs to the Solomons, the inner Templars. Not Britain, not England. You digging this? Pakistan. Are you digging this? You've been screwed over. You've been brought over by this Middle Temple for what you believe to be annihilating the cause of your wars. No. The cause of your wars were the people that created Pakistan when they nicked it off India. Lee Kuan Yew was born in colonial Singapore in 1923 and was educated first in Singapore and later at the London School of Economics and the University of Cambridge School of Economics, of course, Adelphi House in London, home of the Hanoverians as it was. He was called in 1950 and returned to Singapore to practice law. He became involved with Singaporean politics, founding the People's Action Party in 1954 and became the first Prime Minister of Singapore in 1959. He continued in his position through a 1963 union with Malaysia and then full independence for his nation in 1965, serving until 1990. Independence of the British government, not Solomon's Temple. Can you dig it? So, that gives you an idea. Founder and President of African National Congress, ANC, Nelson Mandela. The boys today reckoning, well, we might call for killing the white people. That's what they're saying now in South Africa. Africa National Congress. Nothing to do with black people. Everything to do with the Solomons. Pixley Ka Isaka Seme, 1881-1951, admitted 1907, called in 1910. Founder and President of the African National Congress. Pixley Ka Isaka Seme, born in the Inanda Mission colony of Natal, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, began practicing as a lawyer in Johannesburg, 1910, and established the South African Native Farmers Association in 1911 in order to encourage black farmers to buy land and gain independence. In response, the white government barred black people from owning land in South Africa. After the formation of the Union of South Africa in 1910, Seme and other young African leaders established the South African Native National Congress, later the African National Congress, ANC. So on the one hand, the British Crown were running South Africa whiteys, and then created its opponent, the ANC. Are you digging that? But yet South Africa was so embedded in with Israel back in the day. What an absolute fraud. Because we're not... Excuse me. We're not the brightest bulbs on the tree. Especially our older generations. In order to unify various African groups from separate colonies. So they were unifying all the groups with the ANC. Seme became president of the ANC from 1930 to 1936, coinciding unfortunately with a period of decline for the organisation. In 1937, he left politics and returned to practicing law. I'll bet he did. Solomon's Law. So that gives you an insight, does it not? How the broker, the Middle Temple, old Queenie, everything that she did and pulled in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India, Pakistan, Kashmir, and everywhere else they got the mix. Not pulled in for England or for Great Britain. All pulled in for the Solomons. Now then, Henry Kissinger. We've looked at him, haven't we? Who do you think controlled Henry Kissinger? Alec Douglas Home, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, is descended from James Scott, 1st Duke of Monmouth, and Charles Lennox, Marie de Medici. Remember from the other week? The Dukes of Monmouth and Charles Lennox. Because Charles Lennox is a bastard son of Charles II. 1st Duke of Richmond and thereby related to Maria de Medici. Oh ho 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 ho! There it is. Everybody think that's an Englishman. Oh no. Mentor and handler of Henry Kissinger. A Solomon. Lord Alex Douglas Home of Herschel, the former British Prime Minister 1963-64 and Foreign Secretary 1970-74, just before they pushed us into Europe, has been revered by Kissinger as the rarest of statesmen and one of the wisest men I have ever known. EU is an inner temple gig. I've said this before. The beneficiaries to the EU is not the EU, it's the inner temple, the Solomons. Kissinger admitted in his May 10, 1982 Chatham House confession that he kept Lord Home better informed and more closely engaged than appropriate agencies of the US government. Of Kissinger, Lord Home said, "I worked with him for many years in my official capacity. Our London's purpose has always been the same as his." So our, meaning London's, meaning Solomon's, purpose has always been the same as his. This mutual praise is ironic. Lord Home is the survivor of Munich 1938. In 1938, the year that Henry Kissinger's family fled from the Nazis to England, Lord Home, then Lord Douglas, travelled to Munich as British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain's private secretary. There he met with Il Duce Benito Mussolini and Field Marshal Hermann Göring, while Chamberlain hammered out a pact with Hitler that would allow the removal by partition or blitzkrieg strikes of the buffer states which separated Germany from the drive east into the Soviet heartland that Round Table Group geopolitician Halford Mackinder had planned decades earlier. Prime Minister's relative Houston Stewart Chamberlain, a member of the Isis Urania Order of the Golden Dawn, controlled through the Cecil Bloch Society for Psychical Research, was one of the original intermediaries to the Bavarian Thule Society, which indoctrinated Hitler and the core Allgemeine SS in the Blood and Soil version of this plan appears that Mein Kampf. After the rearming of the Rhineland, Lord Home, then newly appointed Neville Chamberlain's private secretary, toured Germany to inspect progress on this Hitler project. The question that separated Prime Minister Chamberlain and Lord Home from the other early oligarchic sponsors of the project, leading to their resignation in disgrace in 1940, as had earlier with Edward VII, was whether Hitler had become a Frankenstein's monster with whom the British could not afford to be publicly allied. Appeasement, the term Sir Winston Churchill used to attack the Munich Pact, was coined for consumption by dumb Americans who had to be rallied to pull Britain's chestnuts out of the fire. Of the Munich Pact itself, Lord Home later said, "There can be no doubt the breathing space saved Britain." Lord Home was born into a centre of the British oligarchy. He was shaped by precisely the same influences that were to shape Henry Kissinger later. Through his father, the 13th Earl of Home, who was suspected of communist leanings in his day. Lord Alec Douglas Holmes was descended from the Black Douglas, a Scottish marcher lord in the ranks of King Robert the Bruce, and was closest relative of the 14th Duke of Hamilton, the Premier Peer of Scotland, upon whose nearby estate Deputy Reichsfuhrer Rudolf Hess landed one night to end the 1939-1940 phony war. An attempt to mobilise British support for the drive east. He was instructed as a youth by Sir Douglas Haig, that the World War I Field Marshal, who was a cousin of former Secretary of State Alexander Haig, and by Lord Robert Cecil, a son of Lord Salisbury, the British Prime Minister who patronised the Milner Roads Group. Lord Cecil, Viscount of Chelwood, founded the Royal Institute of International Affairs in 1919, Tavistock, with Lionel Curtis as a broader round table front. He also founded the League of Nations to manipulate world affairs in the direction of a Second World War, and the Moral Rearmament Movement, Oxford Movement, recruited SS Chief Heinrich Himmler and Field Marshal Göring to attempt to form an Anglo-American German-Japanese axis in the early 1930s. Kissinger joined MRA after World War II. Lloyd Hall was polished at the Aristocrats Christchurch College, Oxford, by Arnold Toynbee, Chief of IRA Intelligence and the Foreign Research and Press Service, based at the RIIA, Balliol College and Rhodes House. Toynbee's Manichean race culture cycle theory of history was the main apologia for the Round Tables group's crime against humanity. And remember, the Bolshevik Revolution in its entirety was funded by the Inner Temple. That's why they didn't join Hitler in his move east, because the plan was to destroy Germany. Yeah, and destroy the Russians so that they could seat the Bolsheviks on there. Bolshevism, communism, capitalism is Solomonism. Yep. Can't be any clearer than that, ladies and gentlemen. That's the game. What else have I got on here? Nothing. Okay, nothing on that one. So that just explains to you the broker that is the Middle Temple. Queenie was a member. Fat Fingers Charlie is probably a member, and his mole. What are they doing? They're about to move all our estates into the Rawhide, which belongs to what? The Inner Temple. Clever shit, this stuff, what they're doing, I'll tell you now. It's clever stuff. What else have we done? So, if you want an insight into the Mafia... Oh, what's happened there? It's not opening up. There we go. I'll just quickly whiz through this, because I just want to remind us of this narrative that's going on today in this fire festival, because it's so important we don't let them get away with this theatre of creating this nuclear conflagration in the Middle East and putting martial law everywhere. It's important we don't let them do this, because this treaty they're finalising in May is a fraud in and of itself, and I'll tell you for why. And I put something on my Facebook that I recommend you look for. The deal offered as a contract by the WHO is not complete. They are not presenting the entirety of the agreement, which means if it's signed off by our elites, our government, it's a fraud, because they're signing off on a contract they don't know the contents of. And remember, it's our trusts that they act for in this fraudulent agreement. Everything is a fraud. They cannot sign this agreement because the whole game isn't on the table. Full disclosure is not going to be there. How can it be binding? It's a fraud. And Japan have recognised it. They've recognised it. Nobody else has. Here's the Mafia. I'll run through this, but I'll put it up. Prince Ottaviano de Medici Tel Toscana, top authority over the Big Z. Does he look like a Solomon? No, because they've been breeding into all our bloodlines. Muslims, Indians, Chinese, Germans, French, Americans, Canadians, English. They are the Scottish, by the way, elites. They're not bred into them, they are them. David I pulled them all in. We've seen him before, Prince Duccio Corsini. He owns the Corsican Mafia. Charles Bonaparte owns the Corsican Mafia. And manages French billionaires and the big Z's. Bernard Arnault. This is Catherine the Great's family. Yeah? Prussians took over the entire Russian gig and then attacked the Crimea in its entirety and pulled in all the Khazars and the pogroms to administer the finance. Bernard Arnault is worth 80 to 100 billion and an agent of the Bonapartes, Medicis and Corsinis, and operates as financier for organised crime like the Corsican Mafia and Milieu or French gangs. Arnault is also a Bonaparte Knight of the Legion of Honour and a Knight of the British Empire. Arnault funnels criminal profits through his $80+ billion bankroll criminally, which is more money laundering. Prince Girolamo Guicidani Strozza is blood and adrenochrome trafficker through his wine company, but I don't know about that. And he works closely with the Medicis. Crescent moon's on, so Palavicini also running Islam. And many witches worship the moon and Isis or Artemis. Francois Henry Pinault, Hollywood wife Salma Hayek. Most of the major actors in Hollywood are obsessed with raping, murdering, cannibal, blah, blah, blah. I don't know whether that's correct, but he says it is. Works for the Medicis and the Strozzes. And his group, our team, his company finances naughty stuff. Victor Sassoon! We went through them yonks ago, did we not? Parlaying we had with the 7th, with the Dangor. Jewish businessman operating from Singapore. Da, da, da. So, trafficking, Zionist Jewish bloodline, Hong Kong, India, family employed, Kadori family. That's the other one, Kadori Dang. Yep, we looked at them, haven't we? The Kadoris, the Sassoons, the Dangor. Yes, we're in it. See, Sassoons were Sephardic Iraqis that migrated into Europe likely during the Moorish invasion, and they are related to the Sassanian dynasty that ruled Persian Empire, which included Iraq. Chaldea was in northern Iraq, and the modern day Chaldeans are Roman Catholics. The Chaldean Mafia, which has operations in the United States, is owned by the Medicis and the Sassoons. The Sassoon family are known as the Rothschilds of the East, and they are closely related to the Medici, Dreyfus, Pritzker, and Hermes Dumas families, which are all really descendants of ancient Egyptian Chaldean bloodlines. Pharaoh's kin. That's why they chop off the winkle. Prince Lorenzo de Medici is an overseer of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Ooh, naughty boy. Doesn't he look innocent and sweet? Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She's a very wealthy woman. I've got a piece on website about this one. So she's high in Hollywood. They're worth billions and managed by the Medicis. The Dreyfus family have had several members who were knighted under the House Bonaparte. Dutch Royals. Dreyfus family owns Louise Dreyfus Group, International Shipping, Agriculture, Communications. So they're going to stop the food. They're probably bombing your bridges. Agriculture, Communications, Banking. Chemical warfare and trafficking. Rand Corporation. Ooh, military industrial there. Intelligence weapons. Own a private bank in Switzerland called the Dreyfus and Sons with Pierre Dreyfus as vice president. Julius Louis-Dreyfus is a large cult of demented witches, says Israel. Zeus. Prince Lorenzo de Medici, Torna Quince Foscari, with Princess Elisabetta de Medici, Torna Quince Foscari. I like the big names. Medici are part of the owners of the gay mafia in the fashion industry and top manager of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. They have a palace in Rome. Gucci family were from Florence and agents of the Medici. Foscari family branched then the Venetians and worked with the Venetian mafia. These Medicis hired their friends to pose as them to hide their identities. So you're not really seeing the real ones that they pose at them. Axel Dumas and Hermes Dumas family worth 30 billion. Agents of the Medici. Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Society of Alchemists and involved in chemical poisoning and chemically hacking the biology of people. Marches Vittorio Frescobaldi is a blood and wine company and works under the Aldo Brandinis. Marches Niccolo Incisa della Rocetta is blood and adrenochrome, blah blah blah. Don't know about that. Shigis Albania della Roveres and San Wittgensteins. Marchese Piero Antonio is top frontline blood trafficker and he financed organised street gangs in Latin America, MS-13 and Asia like the Triads. Apulian mob, Antinoris have also alliance with the Aldobrandinis. Aldobrandinis is married with the Antinoris and now own one of the palazzos in Florence and also inherited the Apulian titles of the Dukes of Brindisi. The Aldobrandinis are the primary owners of the Cavalcanti crime family. The Cavalcanti crime are also nobles of Florence. The Apulian Mafia works with the Albanian Mafia and the Apulian mob is largely criminal operations in New Jersey. So they are in the US and the West. Marchese Lamberto Frescobaldi is blah 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 and the work of the blah, 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 under the authority of the Aldobrandinis. Prince Donatus von Hessen and his wife Princess Floria von Hessen is high-level authority over the bloodlines of the whole Iranian Empire, so he's pretty high-level, this boy. And a top manager of the militarised Nazism and the Big Z. The Hesses are holocaustic Nazis and burn kids, so they'll be having a ball in this 13-day festival. Aquinos with it, Temple of Set, Wewelsburg Castle, House of Hesse, Prince Donatus, primary owner of the Iron Horseman motorcycle gang, the Opel family are billionaires and agents of the House of Hesse, with the car company based in Hesse. The House of Hesse were the Rothschilds' original employers, and the Rothschilds would finance wars on both sides, and the Hessian mercenaries would then fight wars on both sides. Absolutely. The Hesse also co-founded Commerce Bank. Very interesting. The Opel family. So that's your Opel, what were it? Vauxhall Opel. Max Warburg Bank, a Big Z, Gang Stalker, Energy Weapons, Commerce Banks, Federal Reserve, Florentine Spinelli family. The Warburgs were originally the Del Banco family of Venice, Italy, before migrating to Germany. The Warburgs also had directly financed Hitler through Max Warburg on the General Council of Reichsbank under Hitler. But George Soros, they were called the Mischlings. They were Jewish, blah, 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 blah. George Soros, yeah. Nazis labelled anyone who opposed them as Jews. Adolf Hitler was also appointed Jews to the General Council of Reichsbank. There are at least 100,000 Jews that were Nazis called Mischlings. Okay. Count Patrick Faber-Castell, Nicole Junkerman, and Count Patrick is a wealthy businessman and a financier of trolls and shills. The Faber-Castells are officially worth at least $1 billion. Junkerman is linked with the child trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who is related to the Lords of Epstein noble family of Hesse. Interesting. Count Andreas von Hardenberg and Countess Isa von Hardenberg, German bankers, merged the branch with the Spanish Bourbons, the Royals of Spain, and Count Andreas worked for Commerce Bank and also for Berliner Bank, and an advisor to JP Morgan. She's a knight of the Protestant Prussian Order of St. John, headed up by Prince Oscar of Hohenzollern of Prussia. The Hohenzollerns you find everywhere in the breeding programmes. Laura Bush is a high authority within politics throughout the Bush-Walker family, and she oversees a large faction of the female conservative politicians and reporters. The Bushes caused the deaths of over 1 million people in Iraq and hundreds of thousands in Afghanistan. The Bush family were the primary architects of 9/11, a documented government-sponsored and government-orchestrated terrorist attack in America, involving theft of American gold, biochemical attack from the toxic dust, human rights through the Patriot Act, waging war in Afghanistan, committing mass murder. Bush family also have close lines with the Spanish royal family, the House of Bourbon. Laura Bush's mother was Hawkins. The Hawkins family are also married to the House of Bourbon, and they are owners of the Mexican drug cartels. King Juan Carlos of Spain visited Bush Jr.'s ranch, during his presidency. The Bush, and that's King Jerusalem, by the way, King Juan Carlos. The Bushes have a drug trafficking deal with the Bourbons and their cartels, which traffic drugs and children across the Texas border, where the Bushes reside. This is a big thing, this. Joachim Olierius, top executive of World Bank, involving money laundering, gang stalking, Warburg Pincus, UBS, Prince Ludwig of Salm-Sam, with Princess Ulrike of Salm-Sam, and they work under the Hesses. The nobles and royals of Hesse and the nobles of Westphalia have close alliance with the specialised in military. Countess Victoria Don Boucher is high-level manager of alchemical cults like the Rosicrucian Order and a medical order of the Golden Dawn. So they're obviously tied to the Orsini. An overseer of the big farmer, the von den Buschels, have a secret alliance with the Medicis, who own botanical gardens in northern Italy because they taught the Germans alchemy, which is chemical witchcraft and covert chemical warfare. August Bush IV is a billionaire and top authority in the United States, as well as owner of Sons of Silence motorcycle gang, which used the Anheuser-Busch beer logo for the gang symbol. Prince Ferdinand von Habsburg with Countess Tita von Handenberg, who is a German journalist and daughter of Count Andreas von Herrenberg. Jonathan Bush founded Athenial Health and is the top commander of Luciferian gang stalkers and alchemical cults that are involved with burning children to death, also called Holocaust. Jonathan Bush's father is a banker, member of the Skull and Bones. The Nazis used the Skull and Bones symbol for the SS. The Bush family were owners of the Union Banking Corporation under Prescott Bush, and it was seized by the government during World War II for holding gold for the Nazis. The von den Busches are German nobles who were Nazis, and they also used castles for Nazi slave labourers. The Bushes are related to the von den Busches. Oh, that's where it comes from, is it? Well, you can trace them back into Percy's by some methods. Anyway, Baron Benjamin de Rothschilds with his wife Baroness Ariane de Rothschilds, and they are worth several billion as the owners of Edmund de Rothschild Group, which is involved in criminal financing, bribery and money laundering for the Hesses, Habsburgs and Zionist criminals in Israel. The founders of Edmund de Rothschild Group purchased large amounts of land in Palestine to form modern Israel. The Swiss Rothschilds are nobles, barons under the House of Habsburg, which have an alliance House of Hesse. Edmund de Rothschild Group uses the Hessian lion for its logo. Prince Felix of Salm-Sam and Princess Victoria of Salm-Sam, and they are blood and blah blah. Don't know about that. Princess Mafalda von Hessen, like Sir Wiccan, married 2 Italian counts and was most recently married to the Peretti family with Count Ferdinand, whose second wife was Nicole Junkermann, a business associate of Faber-Castells, which are currently married with the Hesses. Junkermann also has been linked with the child trafficker Epstein, who is really related to the German lords of Epstein, a nobility family of Hesse. George Walker Bush, we all know that fruit bat. Big in DARPA, CIA, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman and various federal agencies and various military industrial companies. The Bushes also created the Department of Homeland Security, which financed domestic terrorist gang stalking. The Bush family merged with the Walker family, and during World War II, the Bushes and Walkers Union Banking Corporation was seized. CIA is named after George Herbert Walker Bush. Trading with the EMIAC for holding gold for that. The CIA is named after George Herbert Walker Bush and Gina Haspel. Current CIA director was born Gina Walker. DARPA is headed by Stephen Walker. Vannevar Bush founded Raytheon, and West Bush is a top executive in Northrop Grumman. The Bush Walkers use directed energy weapons like Raytheon's active denial system on Americans who speak out against them. Richard Hess is president of the Council of Foreign Relations, which is a private non-elected organisation that influences foreign policy in the United States. Jewish agent of the Bush family. Hass was director of policy planning under President George Walker Bush, and prior to that worked for the Department of Defence and as an assistant to President George Herbert Walker Bush. Council on Foreign Relations, which is a satellite of the Round Table Group. So back to the Inner Temple. Prince Philip von Hessen with Princess Leotita von Hessen, and Prince Philip is the top owner of the Hessian motorcycle gang, and Prince Philip also claims the title of King of Finland. The House of Hesse over several large palaces of Germany. See, look, Finland, they've just joined NATO. This is just about killing people. It's got nothing to do with countries against countries. And Putin is not a good guy. He's in with a lot of them. Hess has also managed German intelligence agencies and Interpol, which was taken over by the Nazis during blah blah blah. Jürgen Stock, Secretary General of Interpol, blah blah blah. Educated at the University of Gießen and founded by the Hesses and the Habsburgs. Prince Max von Baden, the Duke of Zähringen, is top authority over the Roman bloodlines, and he's part owner of the various motorcycle gangs around the world. Zähringians also established the city of Bern in Switzerland, and the Badens are married with the Bernadotte royals of Sweden, which covertly originated from Bern, Switzerland, before migrating to Bern, France, and being put in power in Sweden by the House Bonaparte. The Badens and Württembergs owned the Warlocks MC gang headquartered in Pennsylvania. The Baden's Zähringen coat of arms is a phoenix, and the Warlocks used the phoenix as their gang symbol. The Warlocks of the United States have a chapter in Baden-Württemberg, Germany, called the Phoenix Club. Prince Max of Bavaria and Princess Elizabeth, blah blah blah. They're over Nazism, Zionism, Goldman Sachs, and the Bavarian Illuminati, and they're also overseas Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Princess Elizabeth is from the Scottish Douglas family, which produced 4 Grandmasters. Yep. The Whittlesbacks are also related to the House of Stuart, which produced 6 Grandmasters of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Hitler was from Bavaria and was a member of the Bavarian Royal Army, blah blah. Goldman Sachs, Royal Fan, blah blah. Court Jews. So the Goldman Sachs and families were court Jews from the Kingdom of Bavaria, and they founded Goldman Sachs for the Roman Catholic Bavarian royals. Adam Weishaupt founded the Bavarian Royalty in 1776 at Ingolstadt University, a college created by the Bavarian royals, the House of Wittelsbach. Prince Dominique de la Rochefoucauld Montebel is the Grand Hospitaller of the Sovereign Military of the Order of Malta and top authority over various militaries around the world. The Rochefoucaulds and French nobles that also have Bavarian titles of nobility, and they also married with the Roman Aldobrandinis. The Rochefoucauld Aldobrandini Princess Anna was married to Prince Ludovico Chigi Albana della Rovere, the Grand Master of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta during World War II. Baron Albrecht Freiherr von Bosseleger, the Grand Chancellor of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, and was also Jesuit educated. Baron Albrecht is also connected with Switzerland. The Bosseleggers are Roman Catholic German barons, and they were members of the Nazi military involved with the fake plot to assassinate Hitler, which had failed because it was fake. Queen Sylvia Bernadette of Sweden, and Prince Leopold of Bavaria, and Princess Ursula of Bavaria. The Bavarian royals are the overseers of Nazism, Zionism, Goldman Sachs, the Bavarian Illuminati. The Bavarian royals are also kings of Sweden, and they have an alliance with the current royals of Sweden, the House of Bernadotte. When these royals get exposed, they use court Jews to finance Nazi propaganda, where they attack people. Flipping out. George Kaiser, Gustav Bernadette of Sweden. What's he into? The Vikings, who were Scythians that invaded the northern nations of Europe around 200 AD, stole shipbuilding technology from the natural settlers of the Nordic region, and then raided the rest of Europe. The Bernadottes, or Swedish royals, are financiers Viking cults connected with the white supremacist group like the Linwood Vikings, a white supremacist organisation that operates in the police departments in California and the West Coast. The Bernadottes are worth billions, and they have private Swiss bank accounts. The Bernadottes are likely related to the Diesbach and noble families of Bern, Switzerland. The Baden-Zähringen family founded Bern, Switzerland, and they are married with the royal family of Sweden. Jacob Wellenberg, European Round Table of Investments. He's a knight of the Bonaparte's Legion of Honour and member of the Bilderberg Group Steering Committee, I would suggest. Prince Adalbert von Hohenzollern and his wife Princess Eva Maria von Hohenzollern. Prince Adalbert is owner of the German Gremium motorcycle gang. The Hohenzollern coat of arms uses black and white. The House of Hohenzollern also manages German Freemasonry and black and white common symbols used by Freemasonry. The black and white arts. 3 of the 5 German Masonic organisations were founded in Prussia. Prince Wolfgang of Bavaria and his wife Princess Titania of Bavaria. She works in the medical industry and traffics. Bavarian royals specialise in insane and demented things. Michael Bloomberg, worth 50 billion, Joseph Ratzinger, the Nazi Pope, who is the most blasphemous fiend of the planet. Ratzinger took the name Pope Benedict because he is a covert leader of the Order of St. Benedict, or the Black Monks. an ancient Roman Catholic priesthood or monkhood. The Carolingians inverted the Benedictine doctrine, which was that you couldn't own land. So when the Carolingians took over from the Merovingians and took over the monastery at Chalon in France, they inverted what was the Benedictine doctrine. So originally the Benedictine doctrine was that the church held the land in trust for everybody to use. They inverted that so that they could own it. There is a book, I have cited it on some of the reports, where it goes through everything that was going on at Chalon that time. And it were basically, the Merovingians were the original owners who were running what we would call the Arian Church of Rome in the West. And it was taken over by the Carolingians, which is Charlemagne and everything that came after. And they just inverted everything that was for that first 1,000 years. So we probably did have 1,000 years rule of Christ, and then we've coming to the end of the 1,000-year rule of the Antichrist or the Satan. And I think we are coming to the end of it, which is why they're panicking. Because this, if it's correct that this massive geological events are coming up, they want to make sure, like with Noah's Ark, that they come through the flood. So there's just a load more. We could go on and on and on, but there's just tons of them. Unbelievable. And I think this is a work of Israel Zeus. So I'll put it up there underneath. Yeah, definitely an inside guy, that fella. He knows the crack, if this is all correct. And of course, I can't, most of what we've discussed there, I have no idea even who they are, so I can't make a statement that that's fact. But we do at least need to be aware of this game that's playing out all over bloody shop. And we are the victims of it. The hapless victims, you might say. But are we hapless, or are we just, don't we want to know? So, what are you lot saying? Because, good grief, we're nearly 2 hours already. It's unbelievable how fast these live streams go now. Or it's just we're getting into more data. Let's have a look. Flipping it, alright, good grief. Right, I can see that, we did that. Nouveau Laredo, thumbs up, yeah, popped out first. Right, I'm Taylor and then Baby Boomer 59. Look, it's not a bit, I know I'm going a bit, I'm just breaking it up so that we can see how each generation has been shafted. We're all responsible for this, you know, it's just, it's sad. Let's put it this way, because we've all got offspring. What are we leaving them? You know, our parents didn't give a shit what they were leaving us. Is it not time we broke that chain now and started to consider what the hell we're leaving our offspring? You know, it doesn't matter where you are, what culture you're from, what colour you are. We're all being played on the programmes that we all do. It's just a nonsense, really. And the end game is to kill the lot of us. Or get us, each of us to kill each other. That's the game. I've just about had enough the politicians don't give a crap. Exactly, they don't. Why would they? They think they're better than you. Sunak admitted that we're in a model slavery system, that we need more immigrants for that system. Exactly, they need new trusts. Our trusts are old, they've got a lot of assets in them. Bringing in new trusts, there's no assets, is it? It's a new gig, the no-hide gig. It's a completely new game. It's total slavery. Nothing. Nothing at all. So these immigrants think they're coming in here. They're coming to a fucking prison camp. But they're obviously way too stupid. Way too stupid to know. And even a lot of immigrants that have been here 60 years have no idea what they've entered. No idea what they've actually entered. Hard pill to swallow. Yeah. Chess game, says Jerry. Yeah, absolutely. Can only cope with this by laughing at the situation, but it's not really that funny. No, but it is an house of cards. Think about what I put forward before. Get into understanding that credit broker gig. There is your revocation of right to access your account before you sign any contract. You don't need to sign it. As soon as you put that in, it makes it gone. We're off. Who signed X just before you? Anthony Moore says, is this the same for credit cards? Well, the credit card is an unsecured debt for a start, so it's secured against nothing. I don't know how the credit cards work, actually, thinking about it. What are they accessing? Are they not accessing, or are they accessing you? Well, it probably is. I'd have to give that some thought, to be honest. If you die without knowing you had such an inheritance to pass on, well, they get to keep it. Of course it goes into probate. You inform to the registrar of the death, they create a certificate, you bugger off thinking that's the end of it. That certificate is taken by the registrars, put into probate, they pay off the initial debit account that was borrowed from the IMF, your weight in gold here, $98,000 in America. They pay that off, gone. They're now dealing with that credit account that they've created that's worth billions. That's what funds them. On your death. And I'm talking about, that's your real death, but on your death upon your birth. Everything is based on death. Everything. Lock D juicy loosely. Show gave Nigeria's well, what we've just looked at there with the Middle Temple, Inner Temple, that's how they've done it everywhere. The whole, all nations, assets, everything that goes involved with them nations and your land has been pulled in by the broker, Queenie, into the Inner Temple. Gone. You know, you're getting independence. You're getting independence from the British government, but you're now tied into the temple and they own you completely, the Solomon's Temple, Noahide system. Hello folks, let's do the Wise Salon. Join you from the woods this Sunday Eve. Hope all are well. Alright, Anthony, how you doing, mucker? Remember, case withdrawn. BC filed at court, says Untitled. Does the court not create a case file number? Yes, brokers with commission. Now, it's time to pin them down like they're pinned from life to decease. Not quite sure I get that fully there, Untitled. We'll have to chat about that in the week. It's what they leave behind when you think they've left. Good trick, yeah. Yeah, it's your evidence of your interest in the trust system. You are the creditor, remember. They have to convert you to debtor because of your signature. They're the debtors, but they come in with a trick and go, oh, will you just sign this? We'll give you this service. What fucking service? And as soon as you sign that, you've signed away your credit to them. They're servicing you as a broker, selling it to you. You're the debtor. Do you get that, mechanic? That's what you need to reverse. That's the game. Jace, I've been lurking a bit. Yeah, it's early here. How you doing, Jace? He's your debtor team, blah, blah, blah. I wish more people were here. I wish more people would wake up the hell up. Our countries are all going backwards at a staggering rate and being censored. YouTube and Facebook pulling tricks. Oh, I'm having loads of fun at the moment, believe you me. PayPal especially. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on at the moment. It might go south. It might. You'll be ready for that. But sometimes a good few people doing the right thing will have a greater effect. It's an house of cards, people. I hope so, Jerry, blah, blah, blah. Revoke and reverse. Or, yep, try to learn how to manage your estate to claim back the debit. 18.8, who holds the record? The HMRC. Power of it, blah, blah, blah. Yep. It's not easy to handle the truth, not one bit. Most likely why people are still living in that's exactly why it is. People don't want to face the music because they're cowards, as Finkelstein told us. He was telling the truth, that fella. He was stating facts as it is and why they can do what they do. Because of these facts that he presented there. The only arrogant person in that interview was the so-called pastor. That was the arrogant guy. If you saw the trick, if you could actually see it properly. The other, Finkelstein was actually being honest and straight. And that's, what else can you be? So in that interview, the arsehole was the so-called pastor who thought he was the big man. Because they'd do exactly the same if they had the position. Like he said, Finkelstein, you don't have the balls. It's not easy, Jace. I mean, of course, we wouldn't want to do that anyway, enslave everybody, but you've got to understand the Mithra side of things that are presented before to understand the Russian dolls as to at the top. You've got the Trinitarians, where they've created themselves as arbitrators for the left and the right, good and evil. Beyond that, you've got just the dualists. You're either one or the other. No arbitrator, only The ones at the back, the ones, Genesis one that just gave you your avatar and said, off you go, free will, we're not giving you any rules. Just a hint. In our image, look what we created. If you're creating anything other, and this is all your elites up there, you think you're fucking smart, you're not. You've just learned these systems. You're not super intelligent. You've been given these systems because it's what you hand down from family to family. You're not supremely intelligent. You just know more. The bigger tricks, the games, you know the trick. You're not smart. If you were smart, you wouldn't be even entertaining creating systems down here that weren't in accordance with Genesis 1 and creating beauty. You know, Daddy's watching you guys up there, and he ain't fucking happy. I'll tell you that right now. Well, looks like you've had a right good old chat there, me old Chinas. Where's Prince Stephen in Monaco? Yeah, he's not. It doesn't seem to come up there. I did study him before, and he does seem to be a bit of a rebel, but it's a tax haven, isn't it, that place? Liechtenstein. Now, that's some place. Liechtenstein. Tiny little gig, but my God, the money in there. You know, Switzerland, everybody talks about Switzerland. It's more of an admin, a brokerage. It's Liechtenstein is where we were looking, and just trillions upon trillions of assets in Liechtenstein. But I think they've probably moved it somewhere else, because if they're expecting the first major catastrophe in the East in 2040, and then in the West, specifically on the American landmass in 2046, if Jason Varkates is correct, then where they aren't going to put it in China, are they? You know, wherever they're putting it is where they believe it ain't going to be kicking off. So where's that, I do wonder. Back in the 70s and 80s, when we'd be watching the cricket and the streaker would run on the field, someone needs to do something like that during the Super Bowl this summer. What, to lighten the mood? Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I've got 2 teenage boys, but I'm divorced and separated. Lockdown years were terrible and people have forgotten about it already. People can't even remember what happened last week. They don't want to remember. That's the problem. People don't want to remember. How do we reverse it, Sean? That's exactly what we're on train. But that's not something we'd be doing on the internet. So we're going to have to come together. I mean, I do meet people now, you know. I've met a few guys off here now, and it's the only way forward. We need to meet outside of the internet world. They control that one. And yeah. So they're up to no good. I can feel that myself, but also I know they're up to no good. They're trying something very naughty. I do hope the Swiss are better than that, but we'll have to wait and see. So, well, lots of things going on. They're certainly not happy with me at the minute, that's a fact. But unfortunately, I'm not here to be satisfying egos. Sean, I'll catch you up when uploading in the week. Sketchy Signal here in Woods. Just thought I'd stop by and say hello. Keep safe, stay in the mix, folks. Standing in the truth as we find it. Well, that's alright. That's good stuff. I'm not going to do any of the other stuff that I was going to do, because simply it's 2 hours. And these gigs, if we're not careful, they're going to go on and on and on. I think I'll give you plenty there to compute and work with. And I'll say, have a good week, folks. Thanks for joining, mods. Thank you very much. And I'll see you till the next time.
Masonic.